Are you ready to navigate the new way to work? Forbes Books presents Dare to Care in the Workplace with Kathleen Quinn Botaw. Here's Kathleen.
Welcome back to my discussion with Dee Ann Turner, the former Vice President of Talent at Chick-fil-A. She's now teaching leaders how to find and keep extraordinary talent. Dee Ann, I want to go into your writing. You've written 3 books.
That's right.
Which is your favorite and why?
Well,
I didn't say this was going to be easy. I said we're going to have a chat.
And it's hard for me because it's very different. So let me explain one thing. It's My Pleasure was my first book.
Which I love. I met you then when you were new, and It's My Pleasure, and we had a lovely chat back then.
Well, that book went out of print because the publisher went bankrupt.
Oh, dear.
And so Baker Books or Baker Publishing Group, they bought the rights from me for that book. And they said, we want you to rewrite it, we want you to update it, and we want you to change the title. I wasn't very excited about changing the title, by the way, because it had been a very popular book. And so It's My Pleasure became Bet on Talent, how to create a remarkable culture that wins the hearts of customers. So anybody who's looking for It's My Pleasure on Amazon, sometimes it's $120 more. Don't buy that book. You don't need to, because everything that's in It's My Pleasure is in Bet on Talent. So with that caveat, the other 2 books are very different. Bet on Talent teaches leaders how to create a remarkable culture, obviously, but it also teaches them how to find and keep extraordinary talent. And my most recent book, Crush Your Career, teaches talent how to be extraordinary. So it's 2 different sides of the same coin, if you will. And I had this heart for leaders because most of my career was spent helping them in those areas. But then I had this new developed heart for the talent that's trying to create their story at this point in my career. And so I love both of them for that reason. And I didn't give you a solid answer, but that's the truth.
Hey, truth is the answer. So that's great. So Bet on Talent and Crush Your Career, those are your bookends. And I'm sure there's more books within you. Once you write one, don't you find like there's more coming out of you?
That's a great question. It is kind of it's the question I get most often is, what are you writing about? 2022 is the first year I didn't have book deadlines in 7 years. And so it's been a very different year and a lot less stressful. I'm a person, even when I speak, I like to get to the point. And so I keep saying, I'm not sure I have any other points about this subject left. I've covered them in both books. But there are things that I'd like to do. And one thing I wanted to be a writer since I was 8 years old.
Oh, so nice. Congratulations.
Thank you. So accomplishing all this has been, my lifelong dream, but I think I'd like to write fiction. And so that might be the next thing I do. I haven't decided, but when I feel a certain call one way or the other, then I'll do that. But I would really enjoy writing fiction.
Oh, how wonderful. Well, I'm glad you have, written books since it's been your dream, since you've been 8. We should all live our dreams. And I wanted to run a name by you. Jeremiah in LA. Do you know him? I'm going to see him this week.
Yeah, Jeremiah Chilpalm. Sure do.
Yes. So did you help bring him into the organization and select him for Chick-fil-A?
A long time ago, that is true. I can remember when he was working his way through, and he was such a rock star talent, and really there in Hollywood, a difficult opportunity to take on. Talent was a problem, just finding people working there in the city and that location as a fast food worker. That was hard before all this other happened. And Jeremiah has worked really hard and really built the brand out there in Hollywood for Chick-fil-A. I'm very proud of him.
Oh, that's awesome. What stood out about him? Do you remember?
Oh, he was his energy level, his vision, his ability to attract people to him as a leader, the way he had a vision for his business, the way he cared about people and the people both that worked for him and his community. And he has a track record of that prior to his location. And those are some of the things. Just a true entrepreneur, the attitude, if it is to be, it's up to me. And but at the same time, understanding how to build a team of leaders around him and really care about their development. And those are some of the things that I love about Jeremiah.
Wonderful. I'll say hi to him for you.
Please
Um,
do.
I sure will. And many people at Chick-fil-A are trained to say, or everybody at Chick-fil-A is trained to say, it's my pleasure. Why was that important?
So years and years ago, Truett Cathy, the founder of Chick-fil-A, had spent some time at the Ritz-Carlton hotels.
Where it's their pleasure too.
That's right. Specifically with Horst Schulze, who was running Ritz-Carlton at the time. And Horst had taught, that was the language of the Ritz-Carlton. And when Truett would visit there, he really loved the fact that when he would say thank you, the employees there would say my pleasure. And he noted that it sounded so much better than what he heard the people in his restaurant saying. Sometimes it would be what I grew up learning to say, you're welcome. But even worse, those teenagers sometimes would say what? No problem. That was something
Awful.
he really didn't like. Yeah, awful to say it's no problem to give you service, right?
Awful.
So Truett came to one of the annual conferences of all the Chick-fil-A franchisees and their spouses and all the staff members and their spouses. And he told a much longer version of the story that I just told you about his experiences. And he told those operators or franchisees, those are interchangeable names. He said, when a customer says thank you, I would like your team members to say my pleasure. And we went away and nothing changed. We'll make a long story short. This went on for 10 years. He came back every year and he made the same request. In the 10th year, he told the story yet again, and he said, now I mean it. And he said it very strongly. When your customers say, thank you, I want your team members to say my pleasure. And he had us all stand up and practice several times. And we left there, and his son, Dan Cathy, said, I think Dad means it. And so thus became a rule in a company that was full of principles and not many rules to say my pleasure. Well, the franchisees, what I have found, they're my heroes of the business because they're out in the field serving customers and making it happen. And they know how to implement things sometimes better than people at a corporate office does. And they didn't go back and just tell team members there was a new rule. They went back and they explained the why. And they explained that without the customers, there weren't any paychecks. And there weren't any promotions, and there weren't any team outings or scholarships or all of these other things. And so, of course, it's our pleasure to serve them. And they could have gone back and said, look, we have to say my pleasure when a customer says thank you. We need to say my pleasure. If we don't say my pleasure and Truett comes here, we might get in trouble. They didn't do that. They explained the why. They created a principle around it that, yes, it's our pleasure to serve the customer because that's why we're here. And it's one of the most amazing things to me that there are 2,700 Chick-fil-A restaurants, all independently franchised, with over 200,000 employees across the United States and Canada. And 99% of the time when you go into a Chick-fil-A restaurant, you have that same experience with that my pleasure. And it was all implemented by individuals, not a corporate edict, so to speak.
That's a beautiful thing when it becomes organic to who you are and what you do and how you serve. And the way you helped build and shape Chick-fil-A over 30 plus years really was instrumental in that servant leadership. Why was that so important?
Well, I think that the whole servant leadership model was exactly who Truett Cathy was. And that's how a culture, especially in a family-owned, privately held business, that's how a culture develops is really, who the leader was. And so the corporate purpose was a reflection of him. The mission of the organization, of course, was a reflection. And the original set of core values were words that described who Truett was. And so part of who he was, and it is the number one core value at Chick-fil-A, we're here to serve. And everybody in that organization has somebody to serve. If you're the CEO, like Andrew Cathy now, he answers to an advisory board that they've selected that gives him input. Everybody has somebody to answer to and somebody that they serve. And at Chick-fil-A, it's a little reverse than a lot of organizations. The most important people in the organization are those in the restaurant. And so
Mm-hmm.
the operator, if you will, is at the top of the hierarchy. And everybody that serves at the support center, as they now call it, are there to serve those operators and their team members so that they can better serve customers. And if, we're not in the service business, I don't, you may be in the chicken business, but you're really in the people business, and people serve.
Mm-hmm.
Such a part of Chick-fil-A's culture that's their leadership model also. The word serve is an acronym for the behaviors that are expected out of leaders at Chick-fil-A. And so when I was there, and I assume it still holds true, but when I was there, we had a saying, leaders serve. And the S is for see and shape the future. The E is for engage and develop others. The R is for reinvent continuously. V is for value results and relationships. And the last E is to embody the values.
Beautiful. That is gorgeous. I'm not sure if I heard Dan Cathy speak in Denver, Colorado at an Association for Corporate Growth breakfast for business leaders. And I was just so impressed that he started our session with a Bible verse, because so few people really live their faith or have faith, but then so few have the courage to share their faith and the word. Tell me about that experience at Chick-fil-A, but also I read something that you had a calling to be a minister at one point. Share how important faith is to you.
So backing way up, when I felt the call to be in full-time ministry when I left high school, and that's what I thought I was going to do. And then, and using my journalism skills, that was the plan. And when I got out of college, a couple of things that I realized. One is that I did not have enough life experience right then to write about things that people wanted to read about. And secondly, there really weren't, it was the middle of a recession and there were no jobs for journalists. And so I ended up in the advertising field for a short period of time. That's what a lot of journalists did when they couldn't get a job in journalism. And so I was working for an advertising firm and realized that I didn't like the cutthroatness of it and I wanted to do something different. And I went to Chick-fil-A. That's a long story. It's in my books, and I won't take time to go into all that now. But I applied at Chick-fil-A and went through a long interview process. After being turned down twice, I finally got into the interviewing process on the third time because they had an opening in advertising. But they ended up offering me a job in human resources. And my whole plan was I would spend a couple of years in doing HR work, and then I would go back to marketing and advertising because I'd know where the job opportunities were. Well, at that time, I was still married to the same guy, almost 40 years now.
Congratulations. That's
Thank you.
beautiful.
Thank you. And he was pastor at the time. And so that was part of I'm going into full-time ministry, but we couldn't live on his salary, so I was working. Well, a couple of years into my job, I started feeling like, oh gosh, I really wasn't fulfilling this calling I had. And then it suddenly hit me that actually I was. I just didn't know that I had it, which was that my calling was really to help other people find theirs. And in my role, I didn't just select talent for Chick-fil-A. Sometimes I redirected that talent because I knew it wasn't the right fit for them and that they were really supposed to be doing something else. Or, I was a facilitator to people really finding their role, whether it was at the support center or as a franchisee, impacting their community and their restaurant. So that was a little bit about my background. And Chick-fil-A was a very good fit for that because Truett Cathy founded his company on biblical principles.
Yes.
And he was known to say, and he said it, I think he testified before Congress one time, and he said, I don't see any conflict between solid biblical principles and business principles. And so some of those principles that I saw lived out were treat everybody with honor, dignity, and respect, which was a little bit of a twist of the golden rule where it says, do unto others as you would have them do unto you. But it was treat everybody with honor, dignity, and respect. My favorite was a principle we had, make second mile second nature. And that whole concept came from the scripture in Matthew where Jesus taught his followers that when a Roman soldier asks you to carry his pack 1 mile, you carry it 2. You go above and beyond what's expected. And so
Right.
we created a service model at Chick-fil-A that was all about going above and beyond what a customer expected. And even today, when you hear stories about Chick-fil-A, that's what you hear. I didn't
Hmm.
expect you to change my tire or jump off my dead battery or go dumpster diving for my discarded dental appliance or send a boat after me when I was being flooded out of my home or jump through the drive-through window into the back seat and save my choking child. Those are
Mm.
things you don't expect, but that was the environment we had. So all of that was a very good match for me for that reason, and it created the culture at Chick-fil-A that really does win the hearts of customers.
And you found your ministry.
I did, and
You
I
did.
still believe I continue that in the work I do today.
Isn't that beautiful? Well, you said something really important. It is also your job as a leader, or it was your job as a leader at Chick-fil-A, to redirect the talent. Can you say a little bit more about that? Because I see business leaders holding on to talent that should move on, and they don't have the courage to invite them to leave or find something that better suits them. Can you explain that more?
Yes, it seemed like it was, I don't know, it was a couple decades ago that I had this realization that, I'll give you the example. And again, I haven't been at Chick-fil-A in 4 years, so I don't know what the process is
Sure.
now. But at the time, it was a really lengthy selection process to be a Chick-fil-A franchisee. I know several that were years in the process. And some of those people would go and they would work in a Chick-fil-A restaurant, or they might be an interim manager trying to get that opportunity. And sometimes you would realize that there were people that while they were serving you and they were doing a great job at serving you, ultimately they weren't going to have the opportunity that they desired. And so for me, it was that conviction of, if we continue to have them do that and we don't see evidence that they're going to be able to fulfill their dreams, then it's a little bit like stealing their life or stealing their career.
Mhm.
And the kindest thing we can do is actually tell them no. In fact, there's a statement that a former president of Chick-fil-A taught me, which is, it's kindness to refuse immediately what you eventually intend to deny. And so that statement, when I realized that somebody was on a track that wasn't going to lead them to what they wanted, then the kindest thing to do, even though it hurt at the moment, was to get them redirected to a path that they were better suited for. And sometimes that was within the organization, and sometimes that was outside the organization. But
Mhm.
for me, that was a big part of my calling, was that, I was a steward of talent. And, hopefully most of the time it was the talent within the organization, but sometimes being a great steward was helping people get to where they really needed to be in life.
Yes, as leaders, that is our calling, to focus on the person first and their journey, the company second.
Exactly.
So I have to ask, it's a frivolous little question, but you worked at Chick-fil-A for over 30 years. What was your favorite menu item?
Well, I always answer that question by saying it depends if I'm being healthy or not. Um, I grew up eating Chick-fil-A from the time I was a little girl. I remember it very, very well, going to the shopping mall with my mom because they were only in shopping malls then, and having a Chick-fil-A sandwich. So I'm really partial to a number one meal, Chick-fil-A and waffle fries. I do, like many people, tremendously miss my coleslaw with that. And a sweet tea. That would be my go-to for comfort food. But these days, I have to tell you, I generally eat the Cobb salad, and I feel very fortunate when I can get what's known as the house dressing or Truett's dressing. It's not provided at every Chick-fil-A location. In fact, I think most don't have it. But if you ever run across it, you should try it because it's outstanding. It was served in Truett's original restaurant here in Atlanta.
Well, you heard it here. Make sure you get the Truett's dressing, everyone. What's your experience now working as I think you're an executive in residence at High Point with Dr. Nito Kubain?
Yes, that's one of the things that I spend time doing. I would tell you that I spend most of my time speaking. And this year, and I will do this into 2023 as well, releasing a couple books within 4 years. I was, and then COVID on top of that and going virtual and all of those things. I did a ton of speaking. I've actually cut back a little bit, wanting to do more meaningful engagements, and be really deep and engaged with the client. And a little bit less speaking than 50. So I've cut back to about 25 to 30 times a year now. And so that's the majority of what I'm doing. I'm developing content. My first e-course is ready to go, but I haven't really marketed it. It's available on my website, but I've not done the marketing plan for it yet. That's coming this fall. And then I'm doing a little consulting. I work strictly with CEOs and CHROs on strategic type of issues, programmatic type consulting. I broker out to other resources that I know. I do a little executive coaching, which I enjoy doing. And then this role at High Point has been a game changer for me. I love being around the young people. I love being on the college campus, having the opportunity to see this next generation. In fact, I'll be releasing a blog post about them tomorrow, just this Gen X. I believe in them strongly. I think they're the next greatest generation. And I think that they get shortchanged a lot. And people say, well, they don't want to work as hard. I don't believe that at all. They just don't want to work hard for no reason. They want a reason to do that goes beyond a paycheck. Now, let's remember, in fact, the president just tweeted a little while ago that people work for more than a paycheck, and it's about honor and these types of things. That's true, but everybody that works to be paid. They have bills to pay and families to take care of. But this generation wants to work hard, back to what I said, to be a part of something bigger than themselves. So I think that that's really, really important, is helping them find that. And what I found of this age group is they'll work very, very hard. If it's something that they believe in. The second thing about their hard work, somebody asked me this question, is like, did they work as hard as we did? Well, maybe not, but they shouldn't have to. They have tools we didn't have. I mean, when I started my business career, there was not a computer on my desk. There was a Selectric typewriter. And so they have tools and things that if they're working, if it takes them as long to do things as it took us to do things, then there's a problem. So they might not be putting in the same hours because they have tools and capabilities that we didn't have. And the other thing is that I see in them, they're brilliant. They're just, their access to information is incredible. And they're the most resilient generation of recent time. They were born at 9/11. Their parents lost their jobs during the financial crisis of 2008 when they were entering middle school, and they went to college in a pandemic. This is a resilient generation that's very adaptable to the circumstances around them. So I think they're going to do great. And I think they need to get behind us. When you think about it, their future depends far less on us than our future depends on them. And so we need to support them.
I completely agree with you. I think they're resilient and they're resourceful and they are remarkable. I love this Gen Z generation. I love every generation, but they're going to help us dig out of whatever we've gotten ourselves into. And I'm excited to see what they do and how they innovate. So I could talk to you for decades. Clearly, we have an awful lot in common, but we have to probably wrap it up. So I want to make sure everybody knows how to find you, Dee Ann. So can you share that with us?
Yeah, that'd be great. So my website is deeannturner.com, DEEANN Turner.com, and you can certainly reach everything there. I'd love to be connected on LinkedIn at Dee Ann Turner. My Facebook page is Dee Ann Turner Author. I'm on Instagram and Twitter at Dee Ann Turner. And all of my books, Bet on Talent, Crush Your Career, can be found in all of the usual places, but they can also be found on my website along with the Crush Your Career e-course that's about to release.
Beautiful. Thank you so much, Dee Ann, for joining me today.
It has been my distinct pleasure. Thanks so much for having me.
It truly was my pleasure. And that wraps up another episode of Dare to Care in the Workplace. I hope you enjoyed the show, and if you did, make sure you take a second to subscribe so you automatically get my new shows when they drop. Also, if you have a minute, I'd love if you left me a review so more folks like yourself can discover the show. Until we meet again.
This has been Dare to Care in the Workplace. To connect with Kathleen, go to KathleenQuinnBotaw.com. Kathleen's book, Dare to Care, is available wherever books are sold. Dare to Care in the Workplace is a production of Forbes Books.